Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. When we think of the Middle Ages, we often imagine swords, castles, plagues, and if we're being honest, lots of people starving. And they did. A lot. But buried beneath all the misery mud and cold turnip soup, there's something else: strategy. Peasants weren't foolish. They were survivors. And in a world without fridges, preservatives, or takeout, knowing what food could last through the long, deadly winter was a matter of life or death. So tonight, we're not just looking at what they ate, we're looking at what they stockpiled. The medieval peasant pantry. Those humble, grim, slightly moldy foods that miraculously never expired. Or at least outlived the people who stored them. Before we dive in, take a moment to like the video. If you enjoy sleepy journeys through uncomfortable history, subscribe to the channel for more late-night survival tales, and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. I always love seeing who's joining us in the middle of the night from every corner of the world. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background. Get cozy, get still, and let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey: foods, medieval peasants stockpiled that never expired. Let's set the stage. You live in a world without refrigeration, without vacuum seals, without plastic wrap preservatives, expiration dates, or even much in the way of containers. If you have a jar, it's clay or glass. If you have a sack, it's woven from coarse flax or hemp. And if you don't store food right well, you don't get a second chance. Because winter comes whether you're ready or not. It comes howling through the gaps in your door and the cracks in your wall. It laughs at your undercooked stew and counts your turnips. And it doesn't care that your last pig slipped on ice and broke its leg. So you prepare. All year and every season you're thinking about storage. Not abundance, just survival. What will still be edible in December? What won't turn sour in a month? What can you tuck into the darkest corner of your hut and forget about until one snowstorm too many has left you desperate and pale? Tonight, you'll wake up in that world. You'll walk barefoot across a dirt floor to lift a wooden lid and peer into a sack of grain that's been waiting patiently for the return of spring. You'll taste honey that's older than you chew on cheese, so dry it could be mistaken for chalk, and realize that survival never tasted particularly good, but it lasted. These are the foods that didn't rot, didn't mold, didn't quit. They just endured, and so did the people who ate them. So relax your shoulders, let your breath slow. You won't need to forage tonight. We've already gathered what you need. Let's open the medieval pantry together and see what's still sitting on the shelf. You wake with a start. There's no alarm clock, no sunlight filtering gently through gauzy curtains. Just darkness, breath, and cold. The kind of cold that doesn't just bite, it moves in. It curls around your ribs, settles in your joints, and whispers, "Good morning. Let's see if you survive today." You're in a medieval hut, and it is exactly as glamorous as that sounds. The mattress beneath you is a sack of straw, damp, compressed, and suspiciously lumpy. It rustles beneath your every shift, releasing the occasional puff of dust or flea. Your blanket is rough wool, heavy and scratchy, barely clinging to any remaining warmth. Someone is snoring beside you. Someone else just coughed. A baby makes a soft, gurgling noise in the corner. You remember now, you're not alone. No one is. This isn't just your bedroom. It's everyone's bedroom. Your spouse, children, maybe a grandparent, maybe a cousin, or someone who showed up last week with nowhere else to go. The family goat is here too. You don't even question that. It's warm-blooded and not dead. That makes it valuable. The roof above you is low, made of thatch and shadow. Smoke stains mark the beams. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof for smoke to escape and snow to enter. The walls are wattle and daub woven branches coated with layers of mud straw and something organic. You try not to think too hard about that part. You lift your head. You regret it. Your neck cracks. The cold, heavy air presses down like a judgment. But you have to get up, the first task of the morning. Don't die. The second. Find food. And that means checking the stores, the stockpiles, the sacred little spaces you've spent months preparing. Because outside is a frozen world. Nothing grows. Nothing moves. But inside there might still be food if you rationed right. If no one stole it. If the rats haven't found it. If the damp didn't ruin it. If. You move carefully. The floor is dirt, uneven and cold. You step over sleeping bodies, careful not to wake the toddler with the runny nose or the man with the hacking cough. You tiptoe past the pig. There's a wooden chest against the wall. You lift the lid slowly. Inside grain. Not much, but enough. A tightly packed linen sack of barley. Dry, precious, untouched. You breathe a little easier. Next to it is a block of cheese, hardened, crusted, aged so long it might count as a historical artifact. You tap it. It makes a dull sound, like knocking on a door no one answers. That's how you know it's still good. There's a jar of honey, dark, thick, slightly crystallized at the top. You tilt it, watching the slow golden slide. Honey never spoils. You were told that once by a traveling monk, and you've chosen to believe it. In the far corner, a small clay pot sealed with wax, salted pork, or what's left of it. There's a film of fat on top, opaque and solid. You break the seal, and the smell hits you salty, fatty, sharp. Your stomach growls. This was yesterday's luxury. Today, maybe you'll scrape just a little more. You glance at the bundles hanging from the beams, dried herbs, onions, garlic, turnips, so shriveled they look like someone's nightmares. All of them edible. Technically. If you're creative. There's a bag of beans, hard as stone. But if you soak them for half a day and boil them long enough, they become food again. Sort of. And then near the fire pit, your greatest treasure, a small blackened pot of last night's pottage. It's thick now, congealed. A few crusty bits cling to the rim. But it's warmable. And in this world, that's enough. These are your winter stores. Your little miracles. The foods that haven't died yet. The things that endure in a world designed to rot, spoil, and freeze. You haven't seen a green vegetable in weeks. Fruit is a rumor. Fresh meat. Only if something nearby dies unexpectedly. You open the door briefly just to check the weather. A blast of icy air slaps you in the face like a medieval insult. Snow. Not deep, but hard. Crusted. Icy. The kind of snow that crunches underfoot and laughs at the idea of warmth. The sun hasn't even risen yet, but the world outside is blue and silver, a frozen painting. Your breath fogs the air. Your nostrils sting. You close the door quickly. It groans in its frame. Back inside, the warmth, if you can call it that, is relative. There's no fire yet, just the memory of one. A few half-glowing embers buried in ash. You crouch near the pit and begin the ritual blow, poke, add dry kindling. Whisper to it like a god, hope it listens. The first curl of smoke rises. The flame follows, weak but there. You feed it more, slowly, patiently. It takes its time like everything else in this century. Behind you, people begin to stir. The child sneezes. The old man coughs. Someone mutters in their sleep. The goat shifts and drops something you'll have to clean later. The day is beginning. And as the fire catches and the hut slowly warms, you glance again at the corner where your food stores wait. You touch the honey jar gently, like a charm. You lift the cheese and set it near the fire to soften. You stir the pottage, thinking about what you might add to it later, if anything. Because food in this world isn't just food. It's security. It's preparation. It's a small rebellion against the cold and the hunger that waits patiently outside your door. You made it through the night, and thanks to what's hidden in clay pots and wax-sealed jars, you might just make it through another. The fire crackles now soft and steady. Its glow spills across the floor, chasing away the worst of the night's chill. You crouch near it, hands outstretched, fingers stiff and slow. The heat creeps into your bones like a reluctant guest. Around you, the room is stirring. The others wake in stages, groans, coughs, the rustle of straw, the grumbling of a child whose feet are already cold. No one leaps from bed. No one stretches with energy. Morning in a medieval hut is not triumphant. It's survival resumed. And first up, food, or something like it. You fetch the small black pot that's hung beside the fire, the one you so carefully guarded through the long night. You remove the lid. Inside, the remains of last night's pottage have hardened into something between porridge and despair. But it's what you've got. You set it over the fire and add a bit of water snow melted from a bucket just outside the door. It hisses as it hits the iron steam, puffing up like breath. You stir with a wooden spoon worn thin at the edges. The stew begins to loosen, softening again into something you can call breakfast. It's the same every day, this meal. Always pottage, always boiled, always leftovers reimagined as survival. Today maybe there's a bean, maybe not. Someone says they found a shred of pork rind in their spoon yesterday. No one believed them. It sounded too much like hope. You slice a bit of hard cheese, if it can even be called slicing. It breaks into chunks. You hand out pieces. It's sharp, salty, almost chalky, and absolutely precious. Cheese like this lasts a long time. Dry it, salt it, smoke it, whatever you can do to keep it from going green or growing fur. This one is still safe, just barely. You offer a little bread if there's any left. Not the fresh kind. You haven't seen that in months. This is hard tack, dense, dark, and dry. You bang it on the table before passing it around. If it doesn't break the table, it's still good. Most dip it in the hot pottage to soften it. It helps, sort of. You each get a ladleful, maybe two. The children eat first, then the elderly, then everyone else. You don't serve until you know there's enough to go around. The drink is small ale again. Watery, weak, slightly sour, but boiled. Safe. Better than the well which froze solid 2 nights ago. The snow outside is cleaner, maybe. Someone pours a little honey onto a scrap of bread for the youngest child. It's a special thing. A gesture of sweetness in a world that rarely offers it. As the meal ends, the real work begins. Not the chopping or the hauling, but the scraping, the wiping, the washing, such as it is. There is no soap. Not unless someone traded for it in town, and even then it's harsh. Stings the eyes, cracks the skin. Mostly you use ash. Boiled water with a bit of lye made from burned bones or wood. It helps. It burns. It does both. There's a wooden basin in the corner. Cold water. Always cold. You splash your face, the shock is instant. It wakes you more than the food ever could. You rub the grit from your eyes with your sleeve. It's not clean, but it's the cleanest thing you own. Your teeth, you scrape them with a stick. A twig chewed at one end into a frayed little brush. If you're lucky, there's mint or sage to chew. Not to freshen, just to clean, to rub off the buildup of bread and brine and age. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, just friction. There's no toilet. Not really. If you're modest, there's a bucket behind a curtain, or the illusion of one. Otherwise, it's outside, into the woodshed, into the cold. You pick your moment carefully. You pray no one's watching. You pray you don't slip. You relieve yourself behind a hedge or over a frozen ditch. Your hands are numb the whole time. You come back inside colder than before. Some people change their undergarments today if it's the right day. Linen shifts rough and simple. They've been worn too long, washed too little. But changing means pulling fabric over frozen skin. It means exposure. It means effort. Many don't bother. Not yet. Maybe next week. Hair is pulled back, tied with twine, combed with fingers or a wooden comb missing a few teeth. You deal with the lice. Everyone has them. No one talks about it. You dress in the same clothes as yesterday, as always. The tunic is coarse wool patched and repatched, hose tied up at the knee, rags wrapped around your feet. Leather shoes stiff from cold. You move slowly until the warmth of walking brings them back to life. And as you finish, you pause to glance at the pantry again. You note what's left. You count it mentally. You're always counting, always calculating. How much grain, how much cheese, how many jars are still sealed? Is there a root cellar with turnips that haven't frozen? Will the salted pork last 2 more weeks because breakfast is done, but hunger isn't? And the only thing more persistent than winter is appetite. You're dressed now, or as close to dressed as anyone gets in a medieval winter. The layers you wear aren't for fashion or comfort, or even warmth, they're for survival. And even then, they don't always succeed. Let's begin with what's closest to your skin linen. It's your base layer. A long, loose shirt for men. A chemise for women. Made from flax spun and woven by hand, and so thoroughly washed and worn, it has no color left. It started white, maybe. Now it's the color of old bones and campfire smoke. If you're lucky, you own 2. One to wear, one to scrub. But usually, it's just one. Over that comes wool. Everything is wool. Your tunic wool. Your hose wool. Your hood, your mittens if you're lucky enough to have them also wool. Thick, coarse, itchy wool woven loose in some places and tight in others. It traps heat when dry, holds damp when wet. It's always somewhere in between. Your tunic reaches your thighs or knees belted with a rope or leather cord. The belt doesn't just hold it shut. It holds everything: knife pouch, flint, maybe a little wax-wrapped cheese if you're feeling bold. The hose, 2 separate leg coverings are tied at the waist or thigh depending on your wealth and dignity. They sag constantly. You fix them constantly. Eventually you give up. On your feet, rags first, then maybe shoes. Your shoes are leather, handmade, patched, stitched, hardened by wear. No tread, no arch support, no waterproof lining. The soles are thin. You feel every stone, every clod of frozen mud, every sharp shard of... And over it all, your cloak. Wool again, thicker, sometimes lined with fur rabbit if you're lucky. It fastens with a wooden pin or a knotted cord. It smells like smoke, wet earth, and the hundreds of days it's kept you from freezing. It's your blanket, your shield, your comfort. You sleep in it, work in it, wrap your children in it when they shiver. You don't change clothes daily. You don't wash them often. Washing means boiling water, scrubbing by hand with ashes drying by the fire, where sparks might undo all your effort. You only wash when you must. You only change when the smell demands it. But as rough as the clothes are, they're better than what waits beyond your door. Your shelter, your hut, your home. It's made of necessity, not comfort. Wattle and daub walls, woven branches, smeared with mud, straw, dung, and whatever stuck. It dries hard. It cracks in winter. You patch it constantly. Every gust of wind finds a way in. The roof is thatch bundles of straw laid thick, angled steep to let rain and snow slide off. It works most of the time, until it doesn't. When it leaks, it drips. When it rots, it caves. When it catches fire, God help you. The floor, earth, packed bare and freezing. In summer, it's dust. In winter, mud. Sometimes it's covered with rushes or straw, both meant to absorb filth and offer some illusion of cleanliness. You sweep them out and replace them when you remember, or when the smell demands it. There's one room, maybe two if your family is better off than most. You sleep, cook, eat, pray, argue, and cry all in the same space. Privacy is a word that has no use here. There's no chimney, just a smoke hole above the hearth. You leave it open and pray it doesn't rain. The smoke curls along the beams, coats the rafters, burns your eyes, and seeps into your clothes. You can never really escape it. The hearth is your center, your only heat. A shallow pit or stone ring. It eats wood faster than you can gather it. It smokes, crackles, spits. Sometimes it gives warmth. Sometimes it just makes you cough. Your windows, if you have them, are slits in the wall, covered with shutters, maybe oiled cloth, never glass. Glass is for monasteries and royalty. You get wind and bugs. Your bed is a frame if you're lucky, a pile of straw if not. Stuffed into a linen sack, maybe topped with a coarse blanket or a hide. It smells like everything that's ever touched it. You share it. With family, with pets, with fleas. Storage is in every corner, sacks of grain jars of pickled roots, baskets of beans, bundles of herbs, a string of garlic drying above the fire. You protect them like gold. They are gold. In winter, they are what stands between you and starvation. The door creaks. It doesn't latch well. You bar it with a stick or a rock. It won't stop a determined man or a wolf, but it makes you feel better. There are no decorations, no luxuries. Maybe a carving above the door, a wooden cross on the wall, a dried flower pressed flat and forgotten. You don't decorate a hut, you endure it. And yet it is home. When the wind howls outside, when the frost creeps in through the cracks, when the woods echo with sounds you don't want to identify, this hut with its damp walls and smoky air is your sanctuary. It's imperfect, but it holds your food, your fire, your family. It's where you wrap yourself in wool, close your eyes, and whisper, "Just one more night." And when morning comes, if you're lucky, you'll wake again, dress again, step out into the cold again. Wool-clad, smoke-scented, resilient. Because this is shelter. And it's enough. You've eaten your stew or whatever passed for it this morning. You've tied your hose, pulled your cloak tight, and stepped outside into the bitter bite of medieval morning. The sun is barely up. Not that it matters. The sky remains the same flat gray. The cold still rules everything. And now the real work begins. There are no weekends here. No holidays worth resting on. No breaks unless you collapse. In the world you now inhabit, labor isn't a choice, it's how you exist. You work or you starve. It's that simple. Winter doesn't care that the harvest is long over. It doesn't care that the ground is frozen or that your hands crack open at the knuckles. It still demands you tend to what remains: animals, tools, shelters, stores. Everything needs maintenance. Everything needs moving. First comes the wood. Always the wood. It's never enough. No matter how much you gathered before the snows came, it disappears faster than you can replenish it. You need it for warmth, for cooking, for light. Without it, you might as well lie down in the snow and wait for the end. So you head out to the edge of the forest, or the hedgerow, or the pile near the stream that's half buried in ice. You carry an axe if you have one, or a saw so dull it complains with every motion. You chop haul stack. Your breath steams in the air. The cold bites at your face. You keep moving or you freeze. Then it's the animals. Chickens if you're lucky. A goat. Maybe a pig grunting miserably in its pen. Maybe just a pair of oxen owned by the entire village. Whatever you've got, it needs food and water. And water in winter means ice. You break the surface of the trough with a rock. Your fingers go numb. The pig squeals, demanding scraps. The chickens peck at your boots. The goat tries to eat your cloak. You feed them all. Carefully. Reluctantly. Every morsel you give them is one you're not eating. But if they die, you lose everything. Sometimes you collect dung. Yes, dung. You scrape it from the floor of the pen or scoop it from under the roosts. It smells exactly like you think it does, but it fuels the fire. When the wood runs out, dried dung cakes might be all that stands between you and the frostbite. Back inside, someone is spinning wool, or patching a tunic, or stirring the pot of stew for the 5th time today, pretending it still contains nutrients. If you're a woman, you do all this and more. You mend everything. You cook. You weave, you wash. You wipe down the beams with a broom made of twigs. You chase the children. You haul buckets. You knead dough. You curse when the baby pees on your only clean cloth. If you're a child, you don't rest either. You fetch water. You shoo birds from the stores. You peel turnips, sweep ashes, gather kindling. You get smacked if you complain. You get ignored if you cry. If you're elderly, you still work. You tend the fire. You sort dried herbs. You sit near the door and mutter warnings. Even your stories serve a purpose, keeping the children quiet. You don't labor for progress. There is no progress. You labor for the privilege of waking up again tomorrow. You fix what breaks. You pray it holds. You go to the manor fields if the Lord demands it. The frost might crack the earth, but that doesn't stop obligation. If your Lord wants a fence repaired or trees cut down or trenches dug, you go. You don't question it. You owe him days of work each week just for the right to live on the land. You pay with labor, with goods, with silence. Sometimes you're sent to help mend the church, or the granary, or the road into town that hasn't been truly passable since before you were born. You carry stones. You dig. You hammer with tools borrowed and barely functional. If the steward inspects your work, you nod and smile even as your hands bleed. And always there's the rationing, the measuring, the planning. How many sacks of grain are left? How many jars of pickled roots? How many more days can you water down the stew before someone notices? You check on the dried fish hanging in the loft. You press the salted pork with your thumb, testing for mold. You sniff the last jar of ale, already knowing what you'll find. You argue with your neighbor over firewood. You barter with the man 2 doors down. He has garlic, you have beans. You both pretend it's a fair trade. You scrape the inside of a wax jar for one last spoonful of honey. You eat a piece of cheese so hard it might be older than your oldest child. The work is constant, relentless, and largely invisible. No one writes songs about the peasant who carried dung through a snowstorm so her fire wouldn't die. No one praises the man who rebuilt a fence with numb fingers and no nails. But you do it anyway. Because your stomach demands it. Your family expects it. And the cold has no mercy for the idle. When the sun begins to dip far too early, you trudge back to your hut. Your boots are soaked. Your cloak smells like sweat and smoke. Your hands are stiff. Your back aches. You sit by the fire, or what's left of it. You poke it back to life, and you let the exhaustion settle in. You don't celebrate what you did. You just hope it was enough. Tomorrow it begins again, and you'll wake knowing winter isn't something you live through. It's something you work through, every hour, every day, until the thaw. The fire is down to embers again. You sit near it watching the soft glow dance against the smoky walls of your hut. Outside, the sky has turned to ash. The wind slips beneath the door like a rumor. Your back aches. Your fingers are raw. But your mind is awake. Because in the stillness of evening, something else creeps in. Not hunger, not cold, but belief. In this world, belief isn't optional. It isn't debated or doubted. It's not a matter of feeling, it's the scaffolding of reality. The bones of your worldview. You believe in God. Absolutely. Not just on Sunday. Not in theory. God is everywhere, watching, judging, listening. You cross yourself when you sneeze. You mutter God willing before even the smallest plan. You whisper prayers when the wind howls. The church is your map of the world. It defines right and wrong, feast and fast, birth and death. The priest might be the only person in the village who can read. He tells you what Scripture says. You believe him. You have to. You go to Mass, not always by choice. Sometimes because you must. Sometimes because it's the only place warm enough to gather. Sometimes because you're afraid not to. The saints are real. You talk to them more than you talk to your neighbors. You beg them for healing, for rain, for mercy. You wear a scrap of cloth said to have touched St. Cuthbert. You keep it in your pocket like a secret weapon. You fear hell, not metaphorically, not as a distant possibility. You fear it like you fear wolves or fever or the fire going out. You've seen paintings. You've heard sermons. Fire-screaming demons with red eyes and iron claws. You try to be good. You try to confess. But sometimes you lie. You take an extra ladle of pottage. You envy your neighbor's goat. You curse the steward in your head. And afterward you pray harder. Because heaven is the reward, the soft place, the place without frostbite or taxes, a world where bread is always warm and no one coughs. But belief doesn't end with the church. Oh no, that's just the official part. The rest is older, deeper, stickier. You hang iron charms by the door, not for God, for the other things, the ones that live in the woods, the ones that whisper your name at night, the ones no priest will talk about. You never walk the crossroads at dusk. You never leave shoes upside down. You throw salt over your shoulder, tie herbs over the cradle, and never cut your hair on a Sunday. You believe in fairies. You say you don't. But you do, not the pretty kind, not the winged, shining creatures of stories. These are older, stranger. They steal things, milk children warmth. They leave changelings. They curse your cows. They tangle your spinning thread. So you leave offerings, a bowl of milk, a crumb of bread, just in case. Witches. Oh yes, they exist. You've seen the signs. A cow gives sour milk, someone's cursed you. A baby cries all night. Someone hexed the crib. Your husband trips and breaks his arm, someone wanted him weak. You know who it was, probably. And even if you don't, you pretend you do. Because blaming someone feels safer than admitting no one's in control. There are women in this village you visit quietly. Old ones, herbalists, midwives. They brew teas, bind wounds, mumble Latin-sounding words over your sick child. Some say they're witches. Others say they're saints in disguise. You don't care, as long as they help. They tell you about moon phases, root timing, which plants to bury in which corner of your chart. You listen. Because when the priest is too far and the apothecary doesn't exist, these women are your only doctors. You believe in omens, a rooster crowing at night, a dog howling toward the church, a crack in your wall shaped like a cross. You read signs in everything. The way the bread rose, the way the wind smells, the direction smoke curls. You believe because not believing is dangerous. It's not just about you, it's about your family, your livestock, your fields. If you forget the right charm, the right prayer, the right word at the right time, who knows what might happen? So you keep track. You whisper. You knock on wood. You carry the same stone in your pocket every time you cross the river. And when things go wrong anyway, because they always do, you kneel and pray and ask for forgiveness, or protection, or just one more day without bad news. Belief is not comfort, it's armor, a way of surviving in a world where so much can kill you and so little makes sense. You light a candle. You draw a cross in the ash. You kiss the fingers of your sleeping child and hope you've done enough to keep the shadows outside. Because this world is full of things you don't understand. But belief makes it bearable. Even when the fire dies, even when the wind howls, even when you're alone in the dark. You are never truly alone. Not here. Not in a world so thick with unseen watchers. And as you lie down again, wrapped in your cloak, you whisper your nightly prayer, God keep the fire. God keep the food. God keep us through the cold. Then silence. The kind that listens. The wind has calmed for now. The sky outside has dimmed into a dull iron hue, and the sun, such as it is, sinks behind the trees. Shadows lengthen across the floor. Inside the hut, the fire breathes slowly. Dinner time, if it can be called that, has arrived. But don't expect a feast. There's no long table, no roast, no candles glowing in polished holders. This is a peasant's winter meal. It happens near the hearth on a low bench or sitting cross-legged on the floor. The bowls are wood. The spoons also wood. The mood determined but not cheerful. The food. Let's see what survived. You reach for the pot. Again. The same pot that greeted you this morning. The same stew or what's left of it. Pottage is a way of life here. It's not just a meal. It's an institution. Always cooking. Always changing. New scraps added. Old pieces boiling down until they disappear. Tonight the base is barley, thickened with bits of dried onion, a sliver of carrot, and two mysterious lumps someone swears are lentils. There's no meat. There almost never is. The memory of meat may be its ghost still clinging to the rim of the pot. You ladle it out. It's hot. That's its best quality. The heat soothes your throat, fills your belly, and staves off hunger for another hour or two. The taste earthy, salty, slightly sour from yesterday's cabbage. You chew slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because chewing makes it last longer. You pass around a bit of hard cheese cut into wedges that might double as building material. A strip of dried apple, shriveled but sweet, appears from a cloth-wrapped bundle. It's a rare treat. Something saved from autumn's final haul. There's bread, too, dark, dense, and harder than ideal. You dip it into your bowl to soften it. It sort of works. Everyone eats in silence for a while, save for the occasional clink of spoon against bowl or someone slurping a little too loudly. For drink, it's ale again, small ale, weak, barely fermented, and safer than water. It's warm from sitting near the fire all day, but no one complains. You sip. It's sour, but not unpleasant. More like a drinkable loaf of bread. If someone's been clever, they've brought out a jug of mead honey wine. Thick, golden, and precious. You only take a sip. It's strong. Too strong for every day. But tonight maybe it helps take the edge off. And then once everyone's eaten comes something that feels close to peace. Conversation. It's slow, but it's there. Someone mentions a cow that gave birth in the frost. Someone else swears they saw a comet last night. An old woman tells a story again. You've heard it before, but you let her tell it. It's something to fill the air. This is the closest thing to entertainment you'll get tonight. There's no stage, no instruments, but someone sings, off-key, a folk song older than anyone in the room. You hum along. Another joins in. The melody loops. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It just needs to exist. Sometimes someone tells a riddle, or a joke usually involving the village priest or a goat. The children laugh. You smile. It feels good, this kind of laughter. Brief. Bare. Real. If it's a festival time like Yule or a Saint's Day, things might get livelier. You might walk to the tavern if your village has one. A dark wooden room lit with rushlights packed with neighbors. There ale flows freely. Someone plays a pipe. Someone else claps along. The floor is dirt, the air thick with smoke and laughter and spilled drink. You dance or something like dancing. You stomp your feet, sway your arms, try not to fall over. You've got no rhythm, but neither does anyone else. That's not the point. The point is forgetting for a little while. Forgetting the cold. Forgetting the aching in your legs. Forgetting that tomorrow is another day of scraping by. Sometimes someone tells a tale. A knight. A dragon. A woman who tricked the devil. A man who wrestled death and won only to find out his wife had already done it twice. You know they aren't true. That's fine. They don't need to be. Truth is heavy. Stories are warm. Eventually the children grow tired. They lean against you. One falls asleep in your lap. Someone yawns, the fire pops. A neighbor says goodnight and slips out into the dark. And now it's just you and the last of the glowing coals. You sit a moment longer. This meal wasn't luxurious. It wasn't rich, but it was shared. And that in the Middle Ages is rare magic. A full belly, a warm fire, a voice still singing quietly to itself in the corner. It's not much. But here tonight, it's enough. It's later now. The fire is down to faint orange threads beneath the ash. You sit still, listening to the breath of your family. Someone snores. Someone wheezes. Someone coughs, that long, dragging kind of cough that makes your spine ache just hearing it. You know that cough? Everyone does. It's the one that doesn't go away. In the Middle Ages, sickness isn't an event. It's a constant. A hum beneath every day. You live with it the way you live with cold or hunger or smoke in the air. It's always there, waiting. There's no doctor coming. There's no clinic to visit. No pharmacy with tidy labels and hopeful instructions. If you're sick, your options are limited. You try prayer first. It can't hurt. And honestly, it's your best shot. You whisper names to the saints. You offer coins to the Virgin. You light a stub of candle and hope the wax burns straight up. You promise things, vows, penance, silence if only the fever will break. Then you try plants. Someone in the village knows a few remedies. Maybe an old woman who talks to her herbs. Maybe a midwife with more wisdom than she's allowed to admit. She brews you tea from nettles, thyme, and wormwood. It tastes like bitterness and bark. You drink it anyway. If you're lucky, it helps. If you're not, things get worse. You spike a fever, your skin burns, or chills, or both. Your limbs feel heavy. You sweat through your linen shift, then shiver in the aftermath. You see things, hear things, a shadow at the corner of the room. A voice in the rafters. The devil in the corner. A saint at your bedside. You're not sure which is worse. There's no diagnosis. No Latin name for what's inside you. It could be a chill, or the bloody flux, or St. Anthony's fire, or the plague. No one says the last one aloud. Your family keeps watch. They wipe your forehead with rags dipped in cold water. They hold your hand. They pray. They also prepare. Because death comes fast, and if you die, your body must be buried quickly. The ground is frozen, but it doesn't matter. The priest will be called, the grave dug, the shroud wrapped. There's no time for mourning. Not really. Not when every hour means another child might fall ill. If you live, if the fever breaks, if the bleeding stops, if your skin doesn't blacken and slough off, there is celebration. Quiet, of course, but real. Bread is shared. Ale is poured. You're blessed again. You're allowed to speak. But the fear lingers. Because next time you might not be lucky, and there's always a next time. Even small wounds are threats. A cut from a rusty blade. A bite from a rat. A blister that festers. Infection is the silent killer here. You smell it before you see it. The stink of rot. The heat in the skin. The spreading red lines. The solution letting blood. It sounds like madness. But they believe in humors here, 4 bodily fluids that must stay in balance. Blood phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Too much of anyone and the body is sick, so you bleed it out. The village barber might do it, or the priest, or someone's uncle with a sharp knife and a steady hand. You sit still. You bite down on leather. You try not to scream as the blade opens your skin and your lifeblood trickles into a bowl. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And then there's childbirth. It's not a miracle. It's a battlefield. Women go into labor knowing they may not come back. They pray not for ease, but for survival. The midwife comes. She's fast, calm, efficient. She's seen too much. The tools are basic. The knowledge ancient. The room hot with fear. And when it's over, if both mother and child are still breathing, everyone whispers a prayer. Because it was close. It's always close. When someone dies, the world moves on quickly. A bell is tolled. The body is wrapped. The priest mutters Latin. A cross is carved. The earth receives another, and then the fire must be stoked, the pot refilled, the cow milked. Grief waits. Survival does not. You live surrounded by reminders. Cemeteries aren't distant. They're near the church, the market your door. The bones of the dead lie beneath your feet. Children know them by name. Some are siblings, others friends. The older you get, the more you remember. And yet, life goes on. There's laughter at supper, a game played with sticks in the snow, a newborn's cry, a song hummed while stirring the pot. These too are medicine. You've seen people rise from their sick beds, walking barefoot to the fields 3 days after nearly dying. You've seen women cradle babies born too early and swear they'll grow strong. You've watched men with half a hand still mend a fence because the job won't do itself. Fear is ever present, but so is resilience. You tuck in beside the fire. You listen to your child breathe. You place a hand over their forehead, cool tonight. You smile. There's a jar of garlic hanging above the hearth, a dried sprig of yarrow tucked into the rafters, an iron horseshoe nailed to the door. Do they work? You don't know, but you believe in them. You have to. Because in the Middle Ages, medicine is a ritual, survival is a prayer, and hope is the only cure that never runs out. The fire crackles quietly now. Its light flickers against the low ceiling. Shadows stretch across the faces around you, family tired and bundled together. This is your world. These are your people. And tonight, like every night, you survive together. Let's talk about them. Women in your world are the gears that keep everything moving, and no one lets them stop. From the moment a girl can carry a bucket or sweep a floor, she works. She helps her mother. She mends, she spins. She gathers kindling. She rocks the baby. If she's strong, she learns to milk the goat. If she's clever, she memorizes recipes, herbs, cures. But she never stops. By her teens, she's likely betrothed, if not already married. The match wasn't made with poetry. It was made with pigs or land, or the need for another strong back in a household short on hands. Love might come later. Or not. Her body isn't her own. It belongs to the seasons, to labor, to childbirth. And childbirth here is never easy. Each pregnancy is a gamble. The midwife is summoned. Water is boiled. Hands are held. Pain is endured without complaint. No screaming, it scares the livestock. No drama, it draws bad luck. You push, you bleed, you hope. And if you survive, if the baby cries and your heart keeps beating, you go back to work. You strap the baby to your chest and return to the churn. You don't get maternity leave. You get firewood to chop, mouths to feed, and laundry that won't clean itself. And somehow you still laugh. You find joy in small things, a ribbon in your hair, a quiet moment at the fire, a baby's hand grasping your finger in the dark. You tell stories, you hum lullabies, you carry the weight and still manage to smile. Children, meanwhile, aren't quite what you think they are. They're not sheltered, not pampered. Childhood, as you know it, doesn't exist here. From the moment they can walk, they can carry. And from the moment they can carry, they work. A 3-year-old herds chickens. A 5-year-old gathers kindling. A 7-year-old helps in the fields. By 10, they're little adults with chores, obligations, and skills that could rival most grown-ups today. There are games, laughter, running through mud, jumping in puddles, rolling hoops with sticks. But it's always short-lived. Play ends the moment someone calls. Children learn fast. They have to. Illness claims them young. Accidents happen. You've seen parents bury tiny bodies in frozen ground, holding back tears so the others won't lose hope. You learn not to name your babies too soon. You wait. You see if they last the winter. But when they do survive, they become tough, resilient, wise beyond their years. They mimic their parents' every movement, every tone. A boy sharpens his knife like his father. A girl ties her braid like her mother. And then there's the family unit itself. It's not nuclear. It's not neat. Your home includes whoever needs it. Grandparents, cousins, widowed neighbors, orphaned children. Space is limited, but care is not. You sleep head to foot, side by side. You eat from the same bowl. You share lice and laughter. There is no privacy, no me time. You know when your brother is lying from the way he scratches his nose. You can tell your sister's mood by the way she slices turnips. You know when your father is hurting, even when he swears he's fine. Arguments are loud. Forgiveness is quiet. You might yell at your mother when the stew is thin, but you'll carry water for her when her knees ache. You might fight with your brother over chores, but you'll defend him with a shovel if anyone dares insult him in the village. Family isn't perfect. It's survival. The fireside is your anchor. Meals are moments of calm, of warmth, of eye contact. Even if the food is terrible, you're eating together. That means something. Stories are shared here. Warnings, superstitions, names of ancestors, tales of saints and wolves and lost rings found in loaves of bread. Children sit wide-eyed. Parents nod, adding a detail here, correcting one there. Grandparents lean back, eyes closed, remembering their own versions. Evenings are when love is shown not in grand declarations, but in gesture. A blanket tucked tighter. A crust of bread handed over without a word. A rough hand smoothing a tangled braid. This is where you teach values not with lectures, but with example. Work hard. Speak little. Help when asked. Don't leave the door unlatched. Don't waste the last of the lard. Say your prayers. Respect the saints. And fear the winter. The bonds here aren't built with grand gestures or shared hobbies. They're built with shared struggle. A family isn't just people you live with. They are the only ones who know what it takes to get through each day. And when the fire goes out, and the room fills with silence and snoring and soft murmurs in sleep, you realize these are your people, your armor, your reason, and you'd carry every one of them on your back through the snow if it meant they'd see spring. The midday sun, pale and distant, sinks low over the village. Not that it brought much warmth to begin with. The snow hasn't melted. The mud hasn't dried. The cold lingers in your bones like an unpaid debt. You've been working since before dawn. Your shoulders are sore. Your knees complain with every step. But the day isn't over. In fact, the hardest part is yet to come. Because in the afternoon you leave the hut not just to gather wood or draw water, but to move among other people. And in the medieval world, people are dangerous. The social web of your village is as twisted as a knotted rope, tight tangled and just waiting to snap. It holds the community together and keeps you on edge at all times. Let's start with your neighbors. You know them. You know everything about them. Who's behind on their tithes? Who added water to their ale? Who whispered something foul about the Reeves' wife last winter and hasn't been invited to a feast since? It's a village of watchers. You're watched when you leave your hut. Watched when you return. watched when you argue with your spouse or borrow your cousin's plow. Everything you do becomes part of the village story, and that story is always retold. Gossip is currency. People trade rumors like goods, whispers about an extra pig kept off the Lord's register, or a girl seen walking alone too often near the woods, or a man who's been unusually lucky with his harvest. Accusations come easy. Proof is never required. You try to stay neutral, but neutrality is a myth. If you greet the wrong person first at the well, someone notices. If you lend your rake to one neighbor and not another, someone keeps score. Conflict brews slowly. Then it boils. A pig gets loose. It tramples your neighbor's garden. They claim you sent it on purpose. You deny it. They shout. You shout back. Now suddenly you're feuding. People take sides. Lines are drawn over a pig. It's never just about the pig. It's about status, memory. That one time 6 years ago, when their cousin accused your uncle of stealing onions. It all comes back. Nothing is forgotten. If things escalate, the Lord's steward is called. He doesn't care who's right. He cares who pays. Fines are handed out like winter coughs. You can't afford it. But you pay anyway, because not paying is worse. Then there are the laws. They're not written down in a tidy book. They're in the air, in the land, in the Lord's mood. You know them because you were told, not because they make sense. You owe the Lord days of labor. You owe the priest tithes. You owe the reeve obedience. You owe your neighbors silence when it's inconvenient to speak. If you fail in any of these duties, you pay. You might be put in the stocks, your hands and head locked in wood, your face exposed to wind children and ridicule. They throw things. They laugh. Your shame is public. If you steal, you might lose a hand. If you're caught lying under oath, you're branded. Literally, burned. Justice isn't blind here. It watches with one eye and takes with both hands. Violence, too, is part of the rhythm. Not frequent, but familiar. A man gets drunk. He says something he shouldn't. Another man stands up. Fists fly. Someone bleeds. The fight ends quickly. Someone spits blood. The next day they nod at each other and move on. Or they don't. And the feud simmers for years. Sometimes it's worse. A family takes more than their share. A girl disappears. A cow is found dead under suspicious circumstances. And suddenly the whispers turn sharp. People talk of curses, of witchcraft, of punishment. An old woman is blamed. She lives alone, talks to herself. Her chimney smokes at odd hours. That's enough. She's summoned. She's questioned. She's watched. And she never truly walks free again. Because fear is a tool. And in this world, it's always looking for someone to grip. Then there's the structure. You're a peasant. That's your role. You do not rise above it. Even within the peasant class, there's hierarchy. Free men, villains, kotars, bordars. The land you hold, the tools you own, the way you speak to others, it all defines your place. Step out of line and you're pushed back in. Try to dress above your station, people whisper. Get too many compliments on your plowing. Someone accuses you of cheating. Say the wrong thing at the wrong time. You're watched, judged, weighed. It's not fair. But fairness isn't part of this system. Order is, and order is maintained through fear fines and familiarity. Even celebrations are dangerous. A wedding becomes a competition. Who brings the best bread? Who dances too wildly? Who speaks too much? You watch. You calculate. You manage your smile. Because in this world, you don't just survive the cold, you survive each other. So as you walk home in the afternoon's fading light, you carry more than firewood. You carry silence, secrets, the weight of unspoken rivalries, and the knowledge that tomorrow it all begins again. You'll wake up, put on your patched cloak, nod at your neighbor, smile at the man who fined you last week, and you'll play your part. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the art of avoiding it. Night has returned. It arrives fast in winter. The sky darkens as though someone poured ink over the horizon. The village is wrapped in shadow before you've even finished your last task of the day. And suddenly, everything changes. The world outside is no longer merely cold, it is dangerous. You feel it the moment the last light disappears. Your body stiffens. Your mind sharpens. Because in the Middle Ages, darkness is not a passive thing. It is active. It creeps. It hunts. And it hides things best left unseen. Inside the hut, the fire is the only defense. You feed it carefully, coaxing the embers to life. A few sticks, a twist of straw. Not too much, you're running low, but enough. Enough to keep the dark at bay. Enough to hold the night outside for now. Everyone's home. No one lingers outside after sunset, not unless they have a death wish, or worse, an invitation from something unholy. The door is barred, not locked. You have no lock, just a wooden beam pressed tight across it. It won't stop a determined man, or a bear, but it makes you feel like you've done something. Dinner has been eaten. The bowls are wiped with crusts of bread. The children have curled up near the fire. You sit on the ground, your back against the wall, staring into the flames like they might offer answers. And around you, the sounds of the night begin. You hear the wind whispering through the thatch like an old woman telling secrets. You hear footsteps, probably a goat, probably. You hear the howling. Wolves are real, not stories, not metaphors, real and hungry. You've seen what they leave behind. Half a lamb, a scatter of bones, blood-soaked snow. You've heard tales of them slipping into huts through unlatched doors, dragging children away. No one wants to believe it, but they never leave the door unbarred again. You also fear fire, not the hearth, the other kind. The one that starts when a stray ember catches on a straw mat. When a careless candle falls. When a child kicks over a pot. And suddenly, your home, everything you own, becomes ash. Fire spreads fast when your roof is dry grass and your walls are mud smeared with hope. There is no fire brigade, no emergency bucket chain. If the blaze starts, you run. You scream, and you hope the wind blows the right direction. Then there's crime. Desperation grows in winter. A man who would never steal in summer might break in for food now, or fuel, or because his child is sick and he has nothing left to lose, and he won't knock. He'll slip in through the back wall, or the window slit, or the place where the daub has crumbled. He'll take what he can carry. Sometimes more. And you may never know who it was. Because even in small villages, justice sleeps lightly. You try to sleep, but sleep is not rest, not here. The bed, if you can call it that, is straw, packed tight into a sack, lumpy, cold, shared, always shared. You lie down with your spouse, your children, your grandmother. Sometimes the dog, sometimes the pig, not for love, for warmth. You pull the cloak tighter. You feel the fleas bite. You ignore them. There's nothing else to do. You listen. Someone is snoring. Someone is breathing too shallow. Someone is whispering a prayer. You whisper your own. A child coughs. It's dry. But what if it gets worse? What if it's not just the air? What if the fever comes, your eyes stay open long after your body begs for sleep? Because death walks freely at night. It comes quietly, through illness, through hunger, through cold. You've known people who went to bed with a headache and never woke up. You've seen children stiff and still by morning. You've watched the strong wither, the old fade. Sometimes it's fast. Sometimes it takes its time, but it always comes. And when it does, you bury them deep. Or not at all if the ground is frozen. You cover the body with straw. You wait for thaw. You pray for mercy. You don't talk about this during the day. But at night, when the fire is low and the hut is silent, the thoughts creep in. What would they do without you? Who would chop the wood? Who would mend the roof? Who would remember to seal the last jar of pork fat? You don't have answers, so you roll over. You pull the blanket higher. You close your eyes even though you know sleep won't come easy. Outside, the dark presses against the walls. Inside, the fire flickers weakly, and you breathe. One slow breath, then another. You are alive. You have food. You have warmth. It's enough. For now. The fire is almost out now. Just a faint red glow, barely enough to see by. You lie on the straw bed, blanket pulled to your chin, your breath, a soft cloud in the cold air. Around you, your family sleeps, huddled, bundled, motionless. The only sounds are their quiet breaths, the occasional creak of the beams, and the slow groan of the wind pressing against the walls. It's the end of another day in a medieval winter. And somehow, you made it. You worked. You worried. You scraped together a meal from jars and scraps. You mended what broke. You stirred the pot. You avoided a fight. You whispered a prayer. And now you're here staring into the dark, wondering if morning will come. It will, eventually. But before it does, take a moment. Let the world fall quiet. Let your eyes close. Let your body sink deeper into the scratchy wool, the stiff straw, the shared warmth of the people around you. Tonight, you've seen what it takes to survive a medieval winter. You've worn the layers. You've cracked ice from the well. You've stepped barefoot onto a dirt floor in the early morning dark. You've eaten barley stew 3 meals in a row and pretended it tasted like something new. You've hidden your best dried apple in a jar and tried not to think about how little was left. You've patched the same cloak 3 times and told yourself the holes don't matter. You've listened to your child's cough and prayed it was just the air. You've worked with hands that ached and knees that swore they were done, and still you kept going. And through it all, you've held on to hope. Not grand, soaring hope. Just the quiet kind. The kind that says, maybe the roof will hold. Maybe the pig will last till spring. Maybe tomorrow it won't be quite so cold. That's the kind of hope that built this world. Not knights or kings. Not battles or banners. But people like you. Cold, tired, scared, and moving forward anyway. And you didn't do it alone. You did it with your family, your neighbors. The community that watched your every move and still came together when the barn collapsed or the flour ran out. You did it with faith, rituals repeated, charms hung carefully, saints whispered to in the dark. You did it with food. You stockpiled cheese and beans and salted meat, honey, that never spoiled bread that could break a table. You did it with jars sealed in wax and sacks tied with twine and fingers that knew how to stretch every crumb. You did it with a home that was barely a house, a hut patched with mud, smoked to the beams, cold through the floor, but still yours, still standing. And tonight, as you lie there, not moving, not speaking, just breathing, let it all fade. Let the fire become only warmth. Let the memories of cold mornings and flickering candles slip into dreams. Let the creak of the rafters be a lullaby. Because you are not there now. You don't have to wake up and break ice from the trough. You don't have to shout off wolves or ration barley or wonder what sickness will come next. You are safe. You are warm. You are here. And the past, bleak, brilliant, brutal, is behind you. So tonight as you drift off, remember you don't have to wake up in the Middle Ages. Sleep well.